now that you've jumped into go-to-market, showed how to operate this, after a few days, said to your head of go-to-market, okay, now you can take over. They did successfully. You're still observing, but now it frees you up to now go do this somewhere else. Yeah. Have you done this somewhere else with another problem or another department?
We're just about to start doing this on the talent side. I think last time we spoke, we were going to start the year doing it in talent. We had a bereavement in the team's leadership, so I didn't want to stress that out. Right. But we planned for this, and I think every founder, if you ask them, what is your number one priority thing, that's really what the war room should be about. And it's a traveling circus every month. Usually every 2 weeks is a different thing, because it doesn't take less than 2 weeks to solve a P1 priority problem. But it also shouldn't take more than a month. If it takes more than a month, then you're probably misidentifying it. And so ask yourself kind of, what is the P1 priority problem? In the case of V7 right now is scaling the engineering team with as much high quality talent as possible. We've been reactive with our hiring. We need to be tremendously proactive and just go after the people that would be game changing for us, that are kind of better known in the industry. And that means that these are folks that take 6 months to hire at times. And at the same time still continue to grow the engineering team with the maybe 5Xers, not 10Xers engineer that we would normally seek on a regular basis. And again, we're going to get everyone involved in the hiring. We're doubling we already have a generous referral fee for talent. We're going to double it for this period of time. We're effectively signaling everyone in the team, just go to meetups if you want, and find some incredibly bright full stack developer and ask them if they want to talk to me or to Simon. And so we're going to try out this talent version of it, which should be shorter because the talent team is very, very small. But the important point is that the whole team comes together to really find this additional headcount in the company, and everyone will be a better interviewer because they know how important this is, and they're going to look up notes as to how to do a better sell to the candidates or an anti-sell. And really,
and then you're going to track who's succeeding and who's not. You're going to have the successful ones share anecdotally what's working for them and train the ones who aren't there yet.
Indeed, it's trickier in talent because it's a smaller pool. It would be easier to say in engineering or sales where you have double-digit headcount, but in single-digit headcount teams, we have 2 people effectively in talent, and the rest are the V7 employees that bring in referrals. So it could be part of referrals, and it could be part of the talent team itself, and we're able to source. But this one is more about like the employer branding of the company as a whole, the way we do interviews, the feedback we get at the end of interviews, and the reasons why the people that are crucial to our industry don't know about us yet, and how can they know about us and be intrigued to at least talk to the founders.
And you're going to mimic that first 2-week experiment. We're going to say, hey, we're going to do 9 a.m., 6:30 p.m., 5 days a week for 2 weeks. That's wartime. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's going to be all right.
There's one other thing, Alberto, you said that the war room you can address one critical problem at a time. Does that mean you're only having one war room company wide, or that now that you've got go-to-market is sort of set and they're doing their wartime 1 week per month, you now shift to another department and you can be running one war room at a time focused on a problem, and your next one is talent? Or are you saying, hey, because we invite the entire company to these, we're only having one war room that we're inviting the whole company to?
There's a period of intensity when any of these things start that I think is necessary to be given its right breathing room. I think it's possible to run twice, to run two at a time. Maybe in a company that has slightly more siloed departments, and probably ones that don't have too much crossover. Like you could run one that makes total sense is one for sales and one for engineering, where sales needs to go after maybe a specific set of customers to bring them in, or sales and marketing from a pipe gen perspective, and product needs to sprint to complete that one version of the product that would cater to this sub industry. They want to expand too quickly, and so you're effectively coordinating two trains, Petronas Tower style, and trying to build them at a race against one another. I think it's important to leave a little bit of breathing room. Part of the magic is that everyone is working alongside you, past after hours, and you want to make sure that they are there pulling their own weight and they're really leading by example. So you will still want to make sure that you can be present during this kind of war room situation. Or what I might end up experiencing down the road is that these can be run more independently without the presence of the founders at all times by the team that has already experienced it before. Effectively, they're war veterans at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then this can be done more frequently. But I do believe that the breathing room is important, and I do think that like you need to amp things up before you can go. You know, you reach for you aim for Mars and you land on the moon. You need to amp things up a little bit and then land a little bit softer, because you need to demonstrate to people what they're truly capable of, and you do that by sitting beside them,
Yep. So,
and then you land on best practices after that.
so what I'm hearing is that initial 2 week, or whether it's 2, 4, 6 week, whatever, intense implementation in around any one problem or any one department needs to happen one at a time. Once you've solved the problem, gotten through to the then, okay, now let's figure out what peacetime looks like. Then you can then look to go attack another problem. But if you, it's part of the peacetime, you still have 1 week per month of wartime effort, then the whole company should be able to observe that. Even if it's happening in go to market, don't have another war room going in product so that product can observe go to market's wartime 1 week and be helpful there.
Yeah,
And then with the other 3 weeks available, you can have war room in another department addressing another issue. Is that what I'm hearing?
it can
At
probably
least in the beginning, at
it
least
can
until
probably
you.
wait because it's only a period of 2 weeks. So some things can wait 1 or 2 weeks for the like full intensity of all founders in this case. So some companies might have 3 or 4, and all of them are uh, spending all their time helping out with this problem. And I think it's important to make sure you're selecting the right thing at the right time. And, you know, two massive problems a month, um, they usually take, let's face it, they take a year to get into gear. Bad culture usually doesn't happen over the course of 1 or 2 months. It happens over 6 months of neglect or misattention or bad mind space by the founders. Um, and, and and it only takes, you know, 2 weeks of like truly honest and intense work to get them back into the right gear. And after that, they obviously take months to fully heal and to close that gap fully, and for the new culture to be the new norm to the point where people don't even remember how they were. They look back and say like, yeah, that was really stupid. We were really not trying to win there. We were really not spending enough time and care on this particular problem.
Well, Alberto, here's what I'm hearing from you. It took us 2 weeks to get go to market to perform the way we wanted. Now we're going to apply the same method to talent. It's probably going to take 2 weeks as well. Then we're going to go to product. That's probably going to take 2 to 4 to 6 weeks as well. Pretty soon, within a few months, you'll have every department in the entire company operating at the point that you want them to. And my prediction is 3 months from now, there won't be another existential problem to solve. And that's when you can sit back and truly just observe and look beyond the horizon to what's coming, what's the next thing in the industry for you to solve before anybody else does. And
Yeah,
that's when I think it gets truly exciting.
100%. And my hope is that the people that have been brought up to their full potential through this, because just remember, it's not that people in this team were necessarily underperforming themselves, is that the team was not being used to its full potential. And sometimes the company's practices were not bringing them to their full potential. That they themselves come up with what the next big thing should be, because they have
Yes.
been also agents in this. And the important thing is that they've been agents in influencing the unwritten part of the company culture handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, getting them to chip in on this feedback on how the process has been going on a continuous basis not only lets you understand whether people are in or out on the company's mission at that point, very important barometer. But also the ones that are in and give you feedback when they see you actually implementing it feels pretty darn good for them. And so it can also be kind of a unifying exercise, if you will, in moments of difficulty.
So there's two thoughts that come to mind. One is your outperformers, they want this culture. They want the company to succeed. So when you implement this culture, they're probably like, yes, finally. Is that close or am I making that up?
Yeah, they want to win. They they
Exactly.
uh, they choose the painful life of early stage startup workers because they want to they don't want the comforts of a big company like Google, and they want equally hard problems, if not harder. So you have to
Awesome.
really cater to these people because they're the ones that produce magic.
Awesome. Next thought, and maybe you have a small enough company that this doesn't happen, but at larger companies, this idea, the biggest fear that the CEO has is, wait a second, I see a problem in go to market. I see a problem in the pipeline just isn't there. But if I go in and say to the head of go to market, hey, I'm taking over, we're doing an experiment for the next 2 weeks. I'm taking over. This is what we're going to do. My head of go to market will say, screw you. How dare you tell me how to operate my team? If you do that, I quit. Did you have that experience? Or
I
what?
don't
That's the fear, by the way, that the CEO has. I'm not saying that's actually what the head of go to market will say, but that's the fear of the CEO even suggesting this.
I
Did
have
you
seen
experience
this
that fear? And if so, what happened?
all the time, and I've also seen this explode in my face, unfortunately. Sometimes because of the way this might be an Alberto thing, it might not be just a generic CEO thing, but the way you come across when you sort of parachute into a team and you say, we're going to do this. And then everyone's like, all right, okay, we'll drop what I'm doing and we're going to do this. And I found it more effective to, the way I described it to a friend is you have to be the Bene Gesserit. You don't have to be the Lisan Al Gaib, the Dune Messiah. You have to be the person that is influencing things from behind. And whether you're making a suggestion or you're making an imperative statement, the voice of the founder and CEO is pretty darn loud. And sometimes a good way to do these changes is to actually have the company's actual leadership communicate it and allow the team to fully own it, but it's still your decision. And what I've found that worked for me is to do this in a more Socratic way, by saying, Matt, I think, what do you think about this problem? And then they might describe it. They might say it's not really that big of an issue, but you believe it's a priority. And you say, hey, but like, what do you think you would do if it were to become a big issue? And then they would suggest make a suggestion from there. And you can keep asking questions. You can say, I think that's a really, really good point. How long would it take for you to implement that? You've given me advice on parts of this as well. And I find that this like consensus system takes a little bit longer to get there, but it avoids a resentment where the founder, the CEO, can't always be there to solve the problem that they've defined as the big priority. So if you torpedo into a team, if you parachute into a team and you say, we're going to be doing this and screw you, you have to be there to see that thing through.
Mhm.
If you can be there to see that thing through, you're the hero. If after a few days you have to go because you have a conference to speak to, or you have to go and raise money from an investor, people might resent you. They might see you as the one that, more like a seagull that just flies in, takes a shit all over the place, and flies out. And you don't want to be that person. So there's two ways of doing it. If you're really going to sit there in the trenches and see this thing through, you can be the dictator, but the better way to do it is to get your lieutenant to be alongside you, and even better if that lieutenant can be backing you when you're communicating this first order.
And is that what you did on the go to market experiment? Did you
I
get your
have done.
lieutenant?
Actually, I've messed it up, and I've done it in the dictatorial way. For one, during the war room, I effectively took the reins of another team, and said, "Hey, we're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this programmatic SEO experiment, because I'm convinced that it's going to work." And I just at the time I didn't have the patience to explain why or how or get people excited. And we ended up delivering it, but with a lot of resentment, and people thought like, we're going to do this, thing that Alberto wants to do, which you only have a few shots at doing before people start fearing you. A better way of doing it would have been to just allocate 2 hours of scatter time to convince everyone that this would be the best thing to do, and then to just ask like, what should we do and how would you do it? And it's a small difference, but if it comes from the team the team also doesn't know that you've spoken to everybody sometimes. So you can be a little bit sneaky and talk to someone and discuss that something might be the best idea, talk to another person, and then when the two come together to work on that big problem that they themselves have somewhat agreed in conversation that is a big problem, it really does feel like something that they're supposed to own. So I found that that has worked better than the dictator orders from the top.
So what I'm hearing is the best way to implement any experiment like this is to talk to the head of the team where the problem exists and to ask them questions, what the problem is, get them to see what the biggest problem is, ask them what the solution is, get them to see your solution, and that, but have them feel like it's really their idea. That's the ultimate way. Takes time, but that's the ultimate way. That's not what you did in the go to market with a 2 week experiment. You just came in and said, hey, here's what I'm doing. And you ran it like a dictator. And even then, it worked. So what you're saying is the way you did it worked, and there's a better way that works even better. So that's what I want people to take away. Even if you do it the worst way, it still works. Is that fair to say?
It is fair. I think maybe it's small correction there. I got my leadership to agree on the war room terms. They
Mm-hmm.
almost unanimously agreed that everything was what's going to be the right thing to do. During it, the individual contributor employees didn't have that much of a say, but they did have a say in the peacetime terms.
Mm.
Obviously, some star employees were all consulted. We don't necessarily discriminate if someone is a manager or not. But during the actual wartime room, if you're going to go and mess up with the control panel or the roadmap for whatever reason, um, willy nilly, as some founders tend to do when it's like high urgency time, it's more effective to get the whole team to agree that the change should be done and for them to actually move the tallies. And it should be more like, I think it was Reagan who said like, I will do anything you want as long as you're taking none of the credit. Taking really no credit as CEO is a very important skill to hone, and especially this war room thing. Don't take credit for it. The credit should be given entirely to the people that have decided to stay up late, that have talked to their spouses, saying, "Hey, for the next 2 weeks." Some were did not get to see their spouses because they lived so further out from the city that it didn't make sense for them to return so late, and so they booked accommodation in the city and said, "See you in 2 weeks." And those are difficult conversations to have, and you should be really appreciative of this. These people are telling you that they are hardcore and that they want to be within the company and that they want the company to win. It's not just a matter of like keeping their job or not keeping their job because everyone there is in very high demand. There's plenty of companies in this country that will hire you for very reasonable hours for very high pay.
So you just brought up another key point. I think what you're saying is another way to have people really buy in to this process is as it starts to work, instead of saying, hey, everybody, look at this process. It's working. See what I did? See this process that I implemented? No. Instead, say, hey, everybody, this is working. You're doing this. Johnny, you stayed till 9 o'clock and got these many deals done. Susie, you did this and this is what worked. So pointing out their successes and attributing the success to them because it's actually true. They're the ones doing the work. And so giving all the credit to them publicly. Is that what you mean?
That's right. You're going to say, I can't believe you made this work. We had someone, start pitching at the pub, which is one of the most British things ever, and being successful at it. And then he was writing on Slack out the updates of their success. And that is both like charming, hilarious, and heartwarming that this person that may have been like maybe slightly more on the fence before is now fully invested into the process. So I think any opportunities for, again, participation should have unlimited budget.
Awesome. Alberto, that is it. You crushed it. Thank you so much for sharing this whole process with us. Super proud of you for having this idea of what could work, implementing it as an experiment, and realizing, oh my gosh, it does work. And now having this be part of your ongoing company behavior and having it be so successful. Amazing. Super well done. Thank you for sharing that with us in such detail.
Thanks, Matt. Always a pleasure talking to you. And hopefully, some people take inspirations and maybe come up with a better version of this, and I'd be keen to know.
Awesome, my man.